Let me ask you all a question. Can you give me directions to your seat? Are you sure? I mean directions we will hand over to a stranger many years later, after most of the seats here have been removed and the place has been rearranged. Will she or he still be able to find the location of your seat? When they read something like the third seat on the left in the second row, what will that mean to them when there are no longer any rows of seats? This was a situation I found myself in several years ago. But instead of seats, I was looking at homes and various landmarks in the valley of Mecca during the lifetime of Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wassalam, from 571 up until 632. And instead of directions, I was looking at thousands of detailed descriptions from the earliest written records, written by people who were living in Mecca at a time period when much of the same homes from this age were still standing. Records such as those recorded by Abu al-Walid, Ahmad al-Azraqi, who died an old grandfather in 834, and several others. So why does this matter? To understand why a deep analysis of these descriptions was very important, I can start with how this came about. For over a decade, I have been researching and writing about early Islamic history, especially what is called the Meccan period, which are those first 13 years in Islam prior to the Muslims' migration from Mecca to Medina in 622. I wanted to capture this important time period at a higher resolution than ever before, so that the context of the events that took place can be better appreciated and properly understood. Context is, of course, extremely important, and a simple example is enough to emphasize this. If I were to tell you that Hisham hit Khalid, injuring him pretty badly, you may conclude that Hisham was a terrible person. However, if the context of this incident was that Khalid was an armed criminal who had entered into Hisham's home wanting to steal his money and attack his family, then suddenly Hisham is a brave hero protecting his home and his family. So context sets the scene from which events can be evaluated. A critical part of context from a historical perspective is the environment. Much like in our example, it would be important to understand that Khalid was an armed criminal and that the incident took place inside Hashim's home, or Hisham's home. However, Mecca, after centuries of development, especially after the recent mega construction projects, almost nothing remained of its historical sites, especially after the recent mega construction projects, which are important to help facilitate and host for the millions of pilgrims who go to Mecca for pilgrimage every year during Hajj season. Almost nothing remained of its historical sites except a few critical landmarks, such as the Kaaba, Mount Safa and Marwa, which are important for certain religious rituals. So after writing hundreds of pages, desperately wanting to preserve and present historical Mecca for the benefit of all future generations interested in this time period, I was still unsatisfied. In fact, the larger the book became, the less user-friendly it seemed for public consumption. But then, an old proverb came to mind. A picture is worth 1,000 words. This seemingly self-evident fact finds support from various research. For example, Dr. Pauline Diwan, in an article titled Words versus Pictures, states that pictures facilitate learning by providing clarifying examples, extralingual information, context for interpretation, and redundancy which aids recall. Basically, a more vivid understanding and a better memory of that understanding. The research is well established on this, and a paper published in the Journal of Education and Practice explains that people generally remember 10% of what they read, 20% of what they hear, but 30% of what they see. Even better yet, 50% of what they both hear and see. Much like what's happening now, where you have read the information, heard me say it, and seen it illustrated in this chart. This realization launched another 2 years of further research and analysis to produce a massive educational shortcut, never before fully exploited for early Islamic history. Would you rather spend weeks reading and analyzing hundreds of pages to try to get an understanding of what the Kaaba looked like during that age? Or would you rather get there within moments by looking at this image of the Kaaba as it would have looked like during this time period? Would you rather spend years reading and analyzing all of these books, and in fact, many more books, just to understand these books, to try to get a concept of what the Meccan Valley looked like during that time period? Or would you rather get there within minutes by looking at these fully illustrated maps of the Meccan Valley as it was during that time period? In fact, how about a bird's eye view, 3D rendition of the Meccan Valley, where we can move in with pop-up labels, looking, for example, at key terrain such as Mountain Ripple Base, the Kaaba, moving further in to see other landmarks such as the Zemzem Well and the Beni Shayba Gate. Of course, not all labels are shown in this brief sample. However, as you can see, we can go in to look at key landmarks, moving further north to highlight even more key terrain. In fact, we can target a specific home, zooming in with a pop-up to have a look at the exact layout of that home. This, of course, is a speeded up version for the purpose of our demonstration. However, the point is, this achieves within minutes what otherwise would have taken years of research. The short-term results have already been various contests from different establishments from various countries who want to use these maps in their books and in their lectures. So finally, my dream of preserving historical Mecca and making it easily accessible to all people is being realized. You too can benefit from this. If you have a dream, an idea worth sharing, or research you have spent years developing, I urge you to find a way to encapsulate it within images. It will bring your work to life, and more importantly, it will make it more memorable. Thank you.